Welcome to PCA Cares, a special series from the Pennsylvania Chiropractic Association focused on service, community impact, and the ways chiropractors can be part of solutions that reach beyond the treatment room. Today, we are spotlighting ChiroHeroes and their work to educate chiropractors, support survivor aftercare, and build a network of doctors willing to serve those affected by human trafficking. This is a serious conversation and an important one. The goal is not to turn chiropractors into investigators or first responders. The goal is to help our profession become more aware, more prepared, and more connected to the organizations already doing this work. I am joined today by Dr. Harrison and Joe Krysiak from ChiroHeroes. We will talk about what chiropractic offices should know, why aftercare matters, and how Pennsylvania chiropractors can get involved. Let's get into the conversation.
Hi everyone, I'm Mike Barba. I'm the Executive Director here at the PCA. And at our conference, we had ChiroHeroes. And ChiroHeroes, unfortunately, the room was not packed for them, but everybody that walked out of there made sure that they pulled me aside to tell me how important they thought the messaging was, how much we as the chiropractic community here in Pennsylvania need to embrace the things that they're working on and the things that they're trying to address and really kind of dig into the work that is ChiroHeroes. So I'm really excited today to have with us Dr. Harrison, and you also know Joe Krysiak, who is our Sterling Professionals guys, and they are here today to talk about ChiroHeroes, an organization that they've been running for
actually almost 6 years. We started this in October of 2020.
So all the way back to 2020. And so we're excited to hear from them, to hear about the work that they're doing, to hear about the need for the work that they're doing, and how we as practitioners in the community of Pennsylvania can really address and be a part of the solution that is what ChiroHeroes' mission is. So let's start with that. Gentlemen, can somebody share with me, what is ChiroHeroes, what's the mission, and why is it so important that every chiropractor hears what you have to say?
So ChiroHeroes, our mission is literally to help survivors of human trafficking. And we do that by help them and to fight human trafficking. And we do that in multiple ways. We do that by educating doctors of chiropractic and educating general public to be able to recognize signs and symptoms of trafficking in their offices, in their communities, in their families. And then we raise money to donate to different organizations that are set up to free women and children and men from sex trafficking and human trafficking, and to help with the aftercare programs that are out there. There's a lot of different nonprofit organizations that have established aftercare programs, and we work with those aftercare programs to provide necessary education, doctor's visits, things of that nature, homes, houses, places for them to go where they can get back on their feet and get their life back together, including a network of chiropractors who will give free chiropractic care to victims of human trafficking.
I think it's also important to remember that we're not the feet on the street, right? We are the ones that are helping raise money, raise close to $500,000 in the last 6 years. All that money goes directly to human trafficking. We're a nonprofit organization. Eric and I are not getting paid for this, but all of the money resources are given to worthy associations, worthy nonprofits in each state that we work with to help victims and survivors get back on their feet, identify the keys on and the symptoms of what a human trafficker looks like, how to identify it, what to do, what not to do, and create a system that chiropractors across the nation can give back to those in most need.
In preparation for this conversation that we're having right now, I looked up some data on this, and the NCMEC, which is the National Center for Exploited Children, came back with some pretty startling numbers. For instance, a couple of things I wanted to share. Last year alone, 2025 alone, there were 61.8 million files connected with child exploitation that were launched through them, or tip lines. There were 21.3 million cyber tips and 53,000 urgent needs. Now, that's not just in the state of Pennsylvania, but that's in the United States, that this is happening today, and it's happening everywhere. One of the things that from people that were in the room, and that is, once you all started chatting about what ChiroHero does and the need and the work that is ahead of you and the why of what you did, there's a palpable silence that kind of came over the room. And so I want to give you guys the opportunity to talk about the problem. Talk about what we're really faced with and why it is important that a organization such as ChiroHeroes supports other aftercare opportunities for individuals who have found themselves going through this terrible situation.
So there's a couple, and the stats are out there. There's tons of stats. The one stat I always say that we need to remember is this, that every minute of every day, there are 2 people kidnapped and sold into sex trafficking. That is the numbers worldwide. And that is a staggering number. And over 70% of those are women and children. And so that's just a huge number of people. It's far too many. In fact, in our world today, there are more slaves than there has ever been in the history of our world right now, which people don't recognize that either. We always want to go back to the early days of our country and slavery, but right now it's worse than it's ever been.
And you think of human trafficking, a lot of times you think of it as a border issue, Texas, Arizona, California. But guess what? It is definitely a problem in Pennsylvania also. So since COVID, there's been a 98% increase in trafficking convictions. Pennsylvania, amazing state, just such great people, amazing association. Unfortunately, it's ranked in the top 10 fastest growing states in the entire nation. And it's a massive problem against all of Pennsylvania. So super important to realize that this is not a border issue. This is a nationwide issue. And so a great example is here is a national map, hotspots of where trafficking occurs. Yes, there is definitely a problem in Southern California, in Florida, along the Texas. But if you zoom in to Pennsylvania specifically, the hot red areas, these have the same percentage of trafficking per capita as it does in Florida, as it does in Los Angeles. And you know where these cities are, right? You can tell where the heat maps are, where interstates occur, where the population areas. So this is not a border issue. This is a problem in Pennsylvania. And it's important to realize that without the right education, without the right knowledge, your office could be a potential place where a human trafficker brings in their victim they're injured, their victim is injured. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the things to look out for, some of the signs of human trafficking, what to do, what not to do. But this is 100% a problem across the nation. Pennsylvania is a great opportunity to help out people and make sure that the great state of Pennsylvania and chiropractors in Pennsylvania are focused and know what to look out for in these areas.
And sadly, Mike, you mentioned something. One of the reasons we have such a great need for aftercare programs is because, for those that were in our room, one of the stories you heard, one of the videos you watched was about a young girl who was actually trapped in sex slavery by her own uncle. And that is often the case. Sadly, this happens within their own family a lot of times. So when these people are freed, they often cannot be taken home, and they have to go to shelters. They have to go to homes for victims and those types of areas. That's why it's so important that we do raise money so that we can help provide for these locations and these places, so that these people, once they're freed and they're out of the system of sex trafficking, they have somewhere to go and somewhere to rehabilitate themselves so they don't get dragged back into that again. And oftentimes if they go home, then they can get dragged back in.
When I ran into Joe at the Chiro Congress, and he was sharing with me about ChiroHeroes and all the work that they're doing. And we said that we obviously wanted to be supportive of it. And when I went back and shared with my leadership team, they said, I didn't realize that this is a problem in Pennsylvania. And I think it's one of those situations, especially when it comes to this, you think it can't be in my neighborhood and it can't be part of the world that I'm living in, but it is, it's here. And even looking at this map here, you could really see the amount of impact that it has here in just the state of Pennsylvania. Can you talk a little bit about the connection between chiropractic and why somebody may bring someone that they're trafficking in for care, and why they would choose a chiropractor, and why chiropractors need to be vigilant over this because this is happening and a lot of people come to their practices for service.
Yeah, absolutely. So unfortunately, we're a little bit behind our medical colleagues who've had more training than we have in this area. And we know that upwards of 76% of victims that are being sex trafficked or human trafficked will be taken into medical providers' offices during their time of being sex trafficked. And they're not going to go to the hospitals, they're not going to go to big clinics because they've been taught to be aware of those things. So they are going to come into our offices, into our chiropractic clinics, into our smaller offices, in hopes that we don't know, in hopes that we don't have the training to recognize what's happening. So they are more likely to come into our clinics and into other small medical providers' offices. But that's why it's good. I can tell you for a fact that go back 10 years ago, actually probably closer to 15 years ago, I had a patient that was trafficked. Knowing what I know now, she was 1000% being trafficked, and I had no idea. I knew something was wrong. I thought something was weird. But this is before I was even really aware that there was this big sex trafficking, human trafficking thing going on. I just thought it was really weird. It
Right.
came once, never came back again. So had I known what I knew right now, I would for sure be able to turn them in.
Yeah, and I imagine the toll of knowing in hindsight, looking back and going, gosh, I missed X, Y, and Z, or I just thought it was hinky. And the truth is that there was a situation happening that needed someone to have intervention. And that's why I think it's so important, not only for practitioners to be trained, but it's also very important that the staff be trained as well. Joe, you just shared or are sharing currently signs of human trafficking. Would you like to go over this?
Yeah, so this is from a really amazing woman who works for one of Sterling's top customers. She's in Washington State, but she gave me some great insight, and I'm literally getting goosebumps thinking about her because she's so amazing. But she was actually trafficked, and now she's the head PA at a great chiropractic office, a super, super amazing lady. But she helped, we had some data on what signs to look for, but she helped me create this slide. She said, number one, when a trafficker would typically take someone who they've injured, a victim, into a chiropractic office instead of a MD office. Why? Is because chiropractors are not as well trained as MDs are. I go into the chiropractic and my doctor's office. I'm 6'4", 240 pounds. And they ask me, do you feel safe at home? Are there any signs, or are you safe? They're asking me that. They're asking everybody that. And unfortunately, traffickers are smart, right? And so they're going to take their victims to places where there's less susceptibility of getting caught. She said some of the signs were the trafficker would take them into a chiropractic office and they would say that, okay, we're going to say that you don't speak English, you don't talk, and I'll answer all the questions for you. So the chiropractor will ask this person a question, and then the trafficker would pretend like he's speaking in Russian to him, and then she would say something else, and then he would always answer. So that's a big sign, right? Somebody who's injured and isn't allowed to talk because the trafficker is super, super concerned about them saying something wrong.
Sure.
Saying another symptom, a sign to look out for is seasonal or unseasonal or repeated clothing. So you're in the middle of summer, they're wearing a long, heavy dress and a coat, right? And she said that typically they have their sex trafficking outfits, but they might have one outfit that they use for going out and going in public. So if somebody is mismatched, unseasonable clothes, that's another sign. We talked about the constant monitoring. They're unwilling to be restricted, unwilling to be left alone, even for private exams or x-rays. The trafficker will wait outside for this person when they're using the restroom, make sure that the person doesn't have any freedom. They're literally controlling every movement of the victim. And then she also mentioned that sometimes the doctor might ask her a question and they'll be texting. So maybe it's not a fake interpreter, but they're asking him a question and they'll be texting what the correct answer could be. So again, it's not a one size fits all, but if these are definitely important signs of what to look out for. And Eric can share some of the physical concerns and highlights that you can see
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
and to
So
look out for.
I think the first thing, and just most people know this, but we did have one of our doctors share a story about her friend that was a massage therapist. She was doing couples massages at one of the resorts, and the woman who was in the group, as she was getting massaged, she kept putting her hand down to the side and doing this. She did this over and over again to the massage therapist. For those of you who don't know, that is the international sign. We tuck the thumb and go like this for I need help, I'm being trafficked. Unfortunately, this massage therapist didn't know that, and she wasn't able to help. And obviously, it's one of those look back on things and really feel guilty. But that's the official sign, right? And so it's good for all of us to be able to memorize that. The other thing that we want to look for when we're doctors and we're doing an examination, if you have any suspicion, if you've seen anything like what Joe's just talked about, where somebody's dominating the conversation and not allowing that woman or that child to speak and controlling the narrative, it becomes very important that we do a detailed examination on that patient. You want to look in their mouth. You want to look at their teeth. They are malnutritioned, and so you're going to see that in their teeth. You definitely want to palpate spine. See, they're going to have a lot of low back pain. They're going to have a lot of back pain. You want to lift up their shirt and check, listening to the lungs on the posterior aspect of the shirt. And while you're there with the shirt up, listening for the lungs, we want to look for bruising, scratches, things of that nature that are happening. So we're doing these detailed physical exams that we all get taught to do in chiropractic college, but most of us unfortunately don't do on a regular basis. So that's a real need to do that. When you see that sign, that alarm goes off in your brain, that's time to tap into that and start doing a very detailed examination. And you're looking for her reactions or his reactions. And then you're also looking for the reactions of the person that is trafficking them to see if they're responding in a negative way when you start to do a detailed exam. That's another sign of they could be like, oh, why is he doing all this exam? What's he going to find? You want to do those things. Do a very good exam, and you just explain to them. If they ask questions, just say, hey, this is the type of detailed exam I do on all my patients.
Is you think of the symbol, the sign, and what have you, and people not understanding that this is what that means and needing that assistance. The risk that individual was putting herself in to show that sign is something I think we need to be aware of too. I think sometimes we go, why wouldn't they say something, or why wouldn't they acknowledge? And we don't know what kind of threats, fear, intimidation, or abuse that they're subject to that is keeping them from identifying themselves. Dr. Harrison, can you talk a little bit more about what some telltale signs, beyond obviously going through and seeing the extra bruising, if you will, on the upper arm, or injuries that are not injuries that one sustains in normal everyday life? Can you give a little bit more insight into that?
You want to look for specifically the bruising, scratches, cutting. What is the patient wearing? Are they wearing, like Joe said this earlier, are they wearing long sleeves in the middle of summer because they're trying to hide things and protect cuts and scratches and things of that nature? There's going to be some pelvic floor injuries because of the sex abuse. And so it becomes a little difficult because you've got to ask some hard questions in that interview, and you've got to hope that you're going to get some of the right answers back. But you have to palpate into that very lower back area. You need to go deep into the sacral area and see where the injuries are and what those pain levels are. And when you know what's normal, we all see numbers of patients every day. You kind of know what is to be the typical results when you're doing stuff and what's abnormal. And so as you get into abnormal findings and abnormal pain patterns from typical stuff, that's going to clue you into some of those things. So definitely looking at the teeth and definitely looking at the back for the scratches, scars, bruising across the low back, pelvic floor type of pain. That gets tough because in that area, we have to be super careful, explain yourself very well and all that you're doing and why you're doing it, and ask permission to before you do it. Before you go into an area, hey, I'm going to touch you through here. Is that okay? We need to find out. Those are the things. And they may give you permission in that. And what you also have to understand is that when you start asking questions, even if the trafficker themselves is being allowed to talk, they're not going to answer a lot of your questions. They're going to pretend like things are okay because exactly what Mike said earlier, because of the threats at home, is the different threats of what could happen to them when they get home if they're not doing exactly what they're told. Some of the extensive training I've taken with the Malou Foundation, they've told me that they're not going to, even if you ask them point blank, they're going to tell you no sometimes because they're so afraid. So when you know something, if you suspect something, as a doctor, you suspect something, then you call the hotline. Joe will put those hotline numbers up for us so we can all remember them. You call the hotline. But if you're like, this person's being trafficked and you're 100%, you don't call the hotline. You call the police and you get somebody there. So if you're wrong, it may be a little bit like, okay, I feel stupid because I was wrong. But Sean Reyes, the Attorney General for the state of Utah, said we'd rather have 100 phone calls that were wrong than not get the phone calls and have somebody who's being trafficked get away. So when you've got a really good idea, you need to make that call.
And I think you make a really interesting point. It is so difficult sometimes in that judgment call to say, yeah, this doesn't look right. This doesn't feel right. And so much, I think a lot of chiropractors are so focused on, I've got to get them in, I've got to get them served, I've got to move them on because that's how my business model necessarily works. Joe, did you find that information? Would you like me to share that screen?
So two things. I want to hark on the fact that it's more important to err on the side of judgment or err on the side of prevention than anything else. What you don't want to do as a doctor is intervene, saying, hey, are you being trafficked, or confront the situation. You do not want to put yourself in the position. You do not want to intervene yourself because that puts you at risk. But the two things that you want to do, and we'll make it super easy, don't need a slide for it. But number one, what you want to do, if you think it's an immediate danger, once they leave, definitely dial 911 and get their information and say, hey, somebody just came to the office and I believe that they're being trafficked, and let the cops and let the authorities do the research on them. Again, err on the side of prevention. I think number two, if there is a massage parlor or something up the street that you think could be a place for human trafficking, the right thing to do is just text Be Free, BEFREE, and just acknowledge that there's an issue and let the authorities deal with that. Because two things. Number one, if you're not educated, your office, the place, your holy space that you use to help out patients, to make a difference in people's lives, to improve outcomes, to support your family. If you don't know this, your office is a free space, is a safe space for evil to come across, right? And you cannot let that happen. No one wants to let that happen. So please watch out for the signs. Number two, look out for each other, look out for patients, and communicate with authorities to identify or help identify. And we talked about it, but these victims, it's not like they can just get up and go, right? They can't jump in the car and drive away, right? They're in a tough spot, right? These traffickers, they don't know where to go many times. These traffickers may be family members. They might know their family. There's probably threats against them. There might be, usually there's drugs and alcohol involved that they are feeding to the traffickers. That is their reward for continuing to be trafficked. So there's not a lot of opportunities, but what you can do is you can be the ray of hope to connect with authorities, help the authorities get that patient out or that victim out, and then ChiroHeroes helps fund the associations that everything from. Eric, can you talk about some of the ways that there are funding has helped out victims and where that money is going to help out victims?
And I would like to jump in on that. I would love to talk more about what ChiroHeroes does and the why. So please share more of that. But I think it's also going to be really important, Dr. Harrison, if you wanted to take a moment and talk about why the aftercare, and you specifically say in your mission statement, is to deal with not only help them thrive physically, emotionally, mentally and spiritually. So can you go into a little bit more detail of what that means and why is it so important as the aftercare is to not only get them free from the immediate danger of the situation, but to also make intervention that helps with all the care that they're going to need in order to heal from this terrible act upon them.
We've done several things. I think one of the first things we did in the very first year, the money we raised, we donated $40,000 to Operation Underground Railroad. 20,000 of that was earmarked specifically for a scholarship fund, which then they matched. And so that these people who had been freed when they came out, they could get the education they needed to get their lives back on track. The Maloof Foundation that we deal with also has a scholarship fund at Southern Utah University where they'll pay for up to for a bachelor's degree for somebody, all free at Southern Utah University. We're looking to expand that with them to the trades, dental assisting, medical assisting, some of the simpler trades. But there's money out there that's available for some of those victims to do that. The other thing is a lot of these care centers and a lot of these centers that they go to, they have access to psychological counseling, medical care, and then we're providing the chiropractic care through Dr. Christina Stitcher. She's a pediatric ICA pediatric teacher. She has a pediatric clinic here in Utah. And in this particular one, Joe threw up this slide. There's one of the patients that she saw that came into her office without going into too much detail because we are on a little time constraint today. But Christina made absolute miraculous improvement. They call her Jade. That's not her real name because we're not allowed to know her real name, but they call her Jade. And when Jade came into Christina's office initially, her eyes were just black, right? She had gone through psychological training, medical, everything with the aftercare program that she was involved with, and nothing had helped her. She was still in pain every day. And this was right after we had reached out to them and said, we want to give free chiropractic care. And they sent her to Dr. Stitcher's office, and she was able to work with Jade, saw her. Jade, after a couple of visits, said, how often can I come in? Because this helps. And she's seeing Jade every day. She said within a month, when Jade would come in, not only did the light come back in her eyes, but she would walk in the door and give Christina a big, huge hug every time she saw her, because she had literally changed her life in such a positive way that we know that we do as chiropractors. And it's not just an adjustment, it's the whole power of the adjustment. When Jade walked in the door to Dr. Stitcher's office, she failed every neurological test she put her through. She couldn't do any of them. She couldn't stand in place and walk with her eyes closed. There were so many different things she could not do. But she also wouldn't open up emotionally either. And so when Christina was done, obviously she did such a phenomenal job with her emotionally and just connected with her on a level. Obviously, she was coming in and giving her hugs every time she walked in the door. It created a safe place, a safe environment for her to come heal. And we were lucky enough that one of the individuals wanted to do a report on this in the U.S. Psychology Today. I can't see that exact thing, Psychology Today. It's the only article that's ever been written about chiropractic. And it says what human trafficking survivors need most: psychotherapy and chiropractic care. So we're providing an arena to help these patients heal physically, emotionally, neurologically, chemically, while they're getting the other work that they need psychologically with therapists and other medical doctors. But chiropractic has always been one of the great healing arts, and it's absolutely phenomenal what we're able to do for some of these survivors.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at chiropractic as a whole, it being a hands-on technique and a hands-on care could really help with some of the traumas that have been envisioned by someone obviously not good touch. I know we have limited time, guys, so I just want to pivot to a couple other little questions here. One of the things we teach our kids fairly early on is don't talk to strangers. But I think that gets very complicated now in our internet, social media world. And can you all share with us a little bit about grooming techniques that are happening today, about young people having access to really the world can communicate with them directly, and what that looks like in regards to someone finding themselves getting themselves in trouble or talking to somebody that may have, unfortunately, not the nefarious objectives on the individual. And can we talk a little bit about that? I know you touched on it in your talk at the Northeast Chiro Summit, but I think that might be a really interesting thing for us to think about what we need to do in order to keep our kids safe in today's day and age as well.
Absolutely. So one of the groups that we work with is called the Maloof Foundation. And the Maloof Foundation has two things that are very beneficial to us as parents, grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, whatever. One is an app called Raise, and this is a free app. So if you could go to malooffoundation.org, www.maloof, MALOUF foundation.org. That's a free app that you can download to put on your phone to protect your children. And then the other one is part of the teaching that we did with Maloof Foundation is On Watch. And On Watch literally tells the story of survivors, actual stories of human trafficking survivors, what happened to them, specifically how they were entrapped, and what the community or the doctors or the teachers or the neighbors, what everybody missed. It'll go through their specific conditions. You have to be careful. Gosh, there's lots of ways online that you can trap these. First of all, don't give little kids phones. It's just not needed. Find other ways to babysit the kids. Find other ways for children. Get them off cell phones. Get them off of social media until they're older and they're grown up and they can understand these things. But lots of games where they're able to jump onto a game and play and meet friends online. Unfortunately, some of these friends they meet online are not friends. And they're not little girls or little kids or little boys at their own age. They're adults posing as children. This has happened to multiple friends of mine where unfortunately it found out before things could go wrong. But in the one case, the grooming was such that when the young girl, she was probably 11 at the time, they had a scheduled meet, right? A scheduled meet online to all four of the friends to get together to play the game, which was Roblox. And when she didn't show up because her mom wouldn't let her because they had a family dinner and she had grounded her from her phone or something like that. And then she ended up getting the mom's laptop and jumping back on later. But the guilt that this man put her through. And again, he was posing to be another young girl, but he guilted her. I can't believe you didn't come. Jenny was talking about hurting herself because you're one of her only friends and you weren't here. This is the type of things that they do. This is the type of grooming that was taking place. You can't miss these. It was despicable. The guilt that he made this young girl feel for missing one of their scheduled playtimes on the phone. He also tried to get her to color her hair. She's a beautiful blonde-haired young girl. He said, you should color your hair purple. You would look so good with purple hair color. So these are some of the things that they do to the younger children. As you get into the older children, into the older boys and then the older girls, now it becomes pornographic, right? It becomes pictures. It becomes sending nudes. And again, some of these videos that we can see, again, go to malooffoundation.org. Those of you who want to, who have the time, those of you who are in the class, saw some of the things we shared from there, some of the training that takes place there. But it talks about some of that grooming and the sharing of inappropriate pictures, sharing of nude pictures or lewd clothed pictures, which then ends up turning into more nude pictures. And once they have you, once you've sent the nude picture, then they lock you in. And it can be like, hey, sometimes it's just pay me money or I'm going to distribute these to your friends. Sometimes it's if you don't do this and if you don't do this and you don't give me more and send more, then I'm going to turn these pictures into your mother's work or your father's work. And they're going to be fired from their jobs because of what you did. And if you don't give me more pictures, then that's going to happen. And they use a lot of fear tactics on these young children. So there's several ways they groom them, but those are a couple of key ones that we've seen that we know of.
Joe, do you have anything you'd like to add?
We're going to send, I think, 3 things that you can help and make a difference. Number 1 is education. Number 2, I got a call maybe 9 months ago. I was driving and I got a call from a doctor in Virginia that said, "Hey, Joe, I took your online training, ChiroHeroes online training in Virginia. A week later, I saw somebody come into our office who I believed was a victim. I called 911. Police responded back and said, we were able to get that victim out of the situation." Again, he didn't know her name. He didn't know anything about her, but he literally, through taking the training and understand what to look for, he changed their life. And I was out driving on the freeway. I pulled over to the side of the road because I had so much emotion. Wow, what we're doing makes a difference. And every single person watching the show, every chiropractor can make a difference in somebody's life by identifying and knowing what to look out for. Number two, a couple ways that you can help and make a difference. Number one, education. Number two, donate. Every dollar or everything goes back to victims. Money that is from Pennsylvania chiropractors. Vast majority of it stays in Pennsylvania. 75% stays in the state. 25% goes to national. So it's not like we're making money putting elsewhere. You can make a difference now in Pennsylvania, and we'll share these links on the back. Number two, like, this is just a plaque, right? It's something you put on a wall, but this is something that when somebody comes in, trafficker comes in and sees something and they notice these things, right? I was in Fort Lauderdale Airport yesterday on the announcement, "Welcome to Fort Lauderdale, home of the world champion or the champion Florida Panther hockey team. Oh, human trafficking is a problem in South Florida. If you see somebody or you hear something, call this number." So it's everywhere. People are looking out for it, and by committing to ChiroHeroes and donating, we'll send you a nice plaque. You can put it up in your office and let bad people know that your office is not a safe space for them. And then finally, I would say super important, we have chapters in Virginia, Utah, Maine, Washington. We'd love to start a chapter in Pennsylvania. 3 things you want to donate to: PCA, your legislative team. Number 3, it would be pretty cool to have chiropractors aligned on one mission, one powerful mission that everyone can get behind. And we believe that the perfect alignment between chiropractors, what they do, how much you care for patients, and ChiroHeroes is a perfect alignment to helping those most in need.
Yeah. I think I want to reiterate the point of Joe and I and everybody else that's associated with ChiroHeroes does so for free on our own time. I've had doctors tell me, "Eric, this is a nonprofit. You should be getting paid." It's not why we're here. This is not a nonprofit to try to raise money. Every dime that we get goes to the cause. We are sponsored right now by NCMIC, who helps cover their sponsorship of $5,000 a year, covers any hard costs that we have associated with running a nonprofit organization. When we get the money, we have a golf tournament coming up in 3 weeks here in Utah. It'll be the 6th golf tournament we've done here in Utah. It'll be another great successful tournament. We'll raise $30,000 or so, somewhere in that range. What we need is doctors nationwide donating. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It could be whatever you're available, right? Whatever you can do, we are appreciative. Whether that's $10 a month, whether that's $100 a month, whatever you can do as a doctor, whatever you feel comfortable doing, jump on, go to our website, click the donate tab, and you can pick, I want a reoccurring donation of $20 a month or $30, whatever number it is that you feel like you can do, you donate to that cause. And our promise is this will always go to everybody else. I'll never take a dime out of this. Joe's never going to take a dime out of this. John Stuckey, Christina Stitcher, Callie Kravitchuk, all the doctors, all those people that are helping us run this association, nobody takes any money. And when we have a larger group of us, then it becomes easier to do. The time frame, I still practice full time. I still have a successful practice here in Utah. Joe still runs his business full time. When we get many of us together, then it's not a huge time output for us either. And so we would love if we had some doctors there in Pennsylvania who were willing and able to put out some of their time to help us get something started in the state of Pennsylvania. And then as we get that started, you guys can do similar things that we've done, which is host golf tournaments, host different events. We're thinking of hosting a pickleball tournament, of course, because pickleball is huge now, right? And everybody wants to play pickleball. So we could host pickleball tournaments or different things that you guys can create and do whatever it is that you want to do to help raise funds for Pennsylvania. And then we work with you to find organizations in Pennsylvania that are already helping fight human trafficking, and we make donations to them and we team up with them. And so that would be phenomenal to be able to do. Again, huge. We've had also Ty Talcott. You guys know Ty Talcott, the compliance guy. Again, $5,000 donation last year to ChiroHeroes. Joe, I'm forgetting the guy that's our Chiro One Source. Josh with Chiro One Source. I switched. That's who I order all my products through now, because he's donating back to something that I love. And in fact, in December last year, he donated 1% of all proceeds, all the stuff that came into their office, in addition to making another donation. So we have some great, and we're looking to get more great, larger chiropractic names involved with us. But in the meantime, what's really going to make this flow is just lots of small donations from lots of chiropractors across the country that can be put to a good use.
Listen, ChiroHeroes, Dr. Harrison and Joe Krysiak, thank you so much for your time. We could talk for hours and hours about this, and I appreciate you taking some time to get on this. We at the PCA are going to make an effort to work with you and to partner with you, start a working group specifically that is a ChiroHeroes chapter here in the state. And I encourage every single chiropractor in the state of Pennsylvania to take some time, research ChiroHeroes. Let's have them back to teach some more and allow for us to be prepared to really address the needs of the people that are in our community now that are in harm's way. So on behalf of the Pennsylvania Chiropractic Association, ChiroHeroes, Joe and Eric, I want to thank everybody for watching, and all of the information will be in the show notes for this video, as well as all the contact information on how you can get involved in your practice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to Dr. Eric Harrison, Joe Krysiak, and ChiroHeroes for sharing this message with PCA and chiropractors across Pennsylvania. This is why PCA Cares matters. Service is not only what happens inside a practice, it is also awareness, education, partnership, and the willingness to pay attention when someone may be in danger. For Pennsylvania chiropractors, there are real ways to get involved. Learn more about ChiroHeroes, share these resources with your team, consider staff training, support survivor aftercare, and if there is enough interest, PCA would welcome the opportunity to help explore a Pennsylvania ChiroHeroes chapter. All links and resources are included in the show notes. If someone is in immediate danger, call 911. If you suspect human trafficking or want to report a concern, use the National Human Trafficking Hotline resources included in the show notes, including the Be Free text line. Thank you for listening, for caring, and for helping PCA show what service can look like in the community.